Lewis, this is a very special day for us.
It is.
We've been doing Cast Iron for over 5 years.
Yep.
Just told me before we started. And we are finally doing the most anticipated episode of our career.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So we are doing Metallica's Saint Anger. And we're joined with a very, very special guest this time. You may know him from the Split Screen podcast. You might even know him from 5 out of 10 magazine. It is Craig Wilson. Craig, how are you?
Hello. Shout out to all the skillets out there. That's what we in the Cast Iron fan community call ourselves.
The skillets. Jesus.
Thanks for having me. I've been at Alan for years now, probably all those 5 years, to say you need to do a Saint Anger episode because I unironically
I agree
love
completely.
this album.
Don't spoil it.
Oh, sorry.
But so we've kind of danced around Metallica for a long time, and
Yeah, it's
pretty much
we've
the
needed
biggest-
to do this, so yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty much the biggest heavy metal band in the world.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's highly unlikely that anyone listening to this has not heard Metallica before.
Yeah.
But because it's Cast Iron and we could have picked any of their really good early albums, we instead decided to do one of their later ones, Saint Anger.
Yeah.
And I think shy of Reload or Lulu, this is certainly an interesting one to talk about. So, does everybody here? You guys are obviously Metallica fans, or at least Metallica listeners, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And so, how did we all get into Metallica? Do you want to kick off, Craig? Because what'll happen is Lewis and I'll be really bad at turn taking. So I'm going to try and deliberately invite you into this.
I'll just stand
feel
in
like
the
a third
corner
wheel.
of the podcast, smiling nicely. So my Metallica introduction was on a mix CD that I got from a friend when I was learning to play guitar when I was about 15 or so. And it was a punk rock CD, which for some reason on the last track had this song called For Whom the Bell Tolls. And that was like the first time where I went like, oh, this is that Metallica that I'd heard about. I had like Iron Maiden albums before, which was probably the only kind of heavy metal, classic heavy metal kind of thing I had.
Yeah.
And my first band, or the first people I played kind of music with, we had this horrible medley where it would go from Sum 41's Motivation into For Whom the Bell Tolls, and then into Under Pressure by Queen. Which
It's interesting that you chose Sum 41, right? Because like there is definitely like Sum 41 love Metallica, and they're I'm pretty sure there's like a medley from like a couple of years back that they did live on like Radio J or something.
yeah, but they played on when MTV Icon.
Yes, of course.
They dubbed
yeah.
Metallica as the Icon, and Sum 41 opened it with like a blistering medley.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're proper thrash kids.
And they had that, was it Pain for Pleasure? They had the strange like metal spin-off bit that they did in some of their albums, because it was I don't know if I've listened to any of that specifically, but it was tagged onto the back of the Fat Lip video.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like a bonus track on the album. But thrash definitely influences their sound quite a lot on like later records.
Yeah, Chuck especially was
Chuck. Yeah, absolutely. The bitter end is just like a straight up thrash song. Yeah.
Yes, if Lars thought he was done fighting Napster for stealing their music, Derek Whibley came along and ripped them off wholesale on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was like the first song, but the first kind of proper album was, I think, like one of you guys, was the S&M album, which is kind of, I think, a kind of odd way into Metallica's back catalogue, because at the time, I mean, they don't really have a greatest hits out, but S&M is a pretty decent greatest hits if you wanted to give someone a kind of overview of like, well, here's some of Metallica's music, particularly if you bought the DVD version, where you can play with the audio tracks and you can listen to just the band playing.
Wow, that's quite nice.
Cool.
Yeah. Or you can listen to just the orchestra, which for some songs is silent for a while, and then it all kind of picks up and the symphony comes in.
The copied CD version I have, where I've like written with one of those Statler CD marker pens with a Metallica logo on it, doesn't have the bonus features. It doesn't even have proper intros and cuts between the songs.
Oh god.
Lewis, how did you get into Metallica?
Oh god. I think we've spoken about it before, but yeah. This was the first album I bought by them, Saint Anger, but it wasn't the first time I heard them. I think as a child of that time, it probably would have been I Disappear off the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack, and the odd, whatever the hell Kerrang TV was playing. So one would always show up as a music video on there, and you'd often see Enter Sandman and things like that. But as a genuine first impressions, okay, let's check out Metallica, then it would have been Saint Anger, because it was the first one that was available after I'd got properly into heavier music, and it didn't make a great first impression at the time, but I I have come back around to it, because this year in particular I have been absolutely caning the Metallica. I really sort of delved back into the back catalogue and investigated the stuff that I hadn't really given a proper go, to be honest with you. And I have found that I do really, really like this band, and in a weird way I've come back around to Saint Anger and kind of found a weird kind of appreciation for it, because it's such a strange album, and I think the strangeness of it kind of makes it very identifiable, and there's something really kind of special about it. It captures a moment in time, which obviously the Some Kind of Monster documentary does a great job of capturing, but the whole album as a piece is you can tell James is off the back of a rehab thing. His voice is shot to shit on the whole record. It's not a great performance by any means, but it's very genuine and very heartfelt. The things that I love about it are when he has to scream, and he's obviously taking influence from whatever is going on in metal at the time, and it's lots of screamy bands are at the prevalent, but he's never learnt that technique, so it comes across as this really pained, strained sort of genuine kind of scream that sounds a bit got the heart on sleeve, initially didn't like it very much. I thought it was a bit of a strange, it didn't sound like anything that I'd heard outside of this release. It doesn't sound like Metallica, and I was like, is this the best that they can do? But it's a weird piece in time, I think. Now I think it's nice to come back to with the context of seeing Some Kind of Monster. I think it makes it a much more interesting record to revisit. So that was my first real sort of introduction to the band, and not a positive one initially, but Alan, how about you?
So my first Metallica album was also S&M, but it was a hooky copy.
Yep.
So hooky that I think because I had to write which disc was which, I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I started with that and then worked my way back through the classics. The first metal gig I ever went to was Metallica. It was in Dublin in 2003, and it was the Saint Anger tour.
Oh wow! Okay.
So and it was Metallica supported by Linkin Park and The Darkness.
Mate, that's a show and a half. Wow. I would have loved that.
It was really good.
God, if you want to stamp it more to that point in the early 2000s, The Darkness is the band to go to.
Absolutely.
Hey, they're still going. They're still going, and I've got their newest one, Easter is Cancelled, on the shelf over there. It's a good record.
I love The Darkness, man. Totally.
But I guess I kind of went through all the classics, and we can talk a little bit about the history of Metallica. But I've got a lot of time for pretty much everything I've ever recorded, right up until Saint Anger, when I promptly stopped listening to the band, didn't get on with Death Magnetic, and but I do quite like their latest EP. Their latest album, Hardwired, which is a great EP, but a much less good album.
I agree on that one.
But certainly for me, the earlier stuff, okay, so let's just talk a bit about the history of Metallica. So they're one of the pioneering thrash bands in the early 80s.
Absolutely.
If you want a bit of a history of thrash, you can go listen to the Emperor episode, which is good cross promo and probably boosts up some kind of analytics somewhere. But thrash really came out of a mixture of new wave of British heavy metal. Metallica particularly influenced by bands like Diamond Head and but Maiden and Black Sabbath and all those kind of bands.
Yep.
There's also a bit of a hardcore punk influence and a little bit of a black metal influence.
Yep.
So Metallica started off as early thrash. So the first album, Kill 'Em All, is just sort of a straight up thrash album. I'd probably give that a good solid 4 out of 5. I think it's a very fun album.
I love Kill 'Em All. I think it's so much fun. Yeah.
And they're having a lot of fun on it. A lot of fun.
It's that's missing from an awful lot of Metallica records after it, to be honest with you.
Oh, we're definitely going to get into that.
I think as well, probably because the first album for a lot of bands, that's normally where they take in the songs that really work, right?
Yeah, totally.
There's less of the discover it in the studio because they ain't got no money and they don't have any HQ where they can sit around for years at a time to come up with it. So those are all
discover it on the tour, right? Yeah,
exactly. Every song is strong, has just an energy to it that I think.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's battle tested, tested.
Exactly.
And most of their songs, songs like "Hit the Lights" and Metal Militia and stuff, they're all kind of like metal party songs.
Yeah.
They're all songs where they're here to rock the house because they're Metallica.
There's an amazing story somewhere on Metal Sucks, I think, and it's it sounds like a parody story, but it's like kid accidentally does himself massive injury by jumping into the fire to the tune "Jump in the Fire." And it was like a bonfire or something, and he's just jump over it or something. And I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this is a true story.
And they say heavy metal is safe and doesn't rot the brain.
Yeah, totally.
After Kill 'Em All is where Metallica get really interesting because they move into what I've dubbed in my notes as progressive thrash, which I think is essentially really early prog metal, with albums like Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Justice for All.
Yep.
Which have a lot of... You sort of get increasingly technically intricate.
Yep.
Lots of... time changes and key changes, lots of dueling solos, and those kind of neoclassical influences. And it's almost like they've got imposter syndrome, and each album has to get more and more complex and better. And the other big thing in early Metallica is that their original bassist, Cliff Burton, he was this prodigiously talented bassist, died in a bus crash while they were touring Master of Puppets.
Yep.
Which is why no Metallica albums after that you can really hear the bass on.
Yeah,
Certainly not on Justice for All, which may as well have no bass.
Yeah, and Justice for All is such a disappointing record for me because it's like you can tell the song structures and the actual arrangement of everything is fantastic, but it's so massively let down by its production. I know there's been lots of different opinions about why this has happened, and a lot of it is they were phasing their new bassist in, so they decided he hadn't earned his place to sort of be all prominent on the record mix. I don't think that is the case. I know that Lars in particular is very, very particular over his drum sound, to the point that he keeps tweaking it when no one is in the studio, and then the producers get absolutely fucked off with him. And I think that
the story changes about 3 times over the course of the history of that album. And if you go into Wikipedia, it's first of all, the producer's they told me to turn it down, and then he said, it was because we were touring and we were deaf and we couldn't hear anything, so we just kept turning everything up except the bass.
I don't think you'll ever get the real opinion on it, will you?
Yeah, and as late of 2019, they were like, we really wanted to hear the drum sound and stuff. But I listened to the entire Metallica studio album back catalogue and I guess front catalogue from St. Anger, except for And Justice for All.
Yeah.
And that's mainly because... although I think one in particular is one of the top 5 Metallica tracks, if not the best track. I've never really got into it, and I didn't want to rush it. So I'm going to revisit that one after this podcast and try and get into it a bit more.
There's also a way to listen to it with bass. There's a fan remix called "And Justice for Jason," which I have.
And Jason for all.
Yeah. And I also think it doesn't work. I think it's unfortunately a product of that. That album is just so badly mixed and produced that unfortunately, like the bass. If you add a bass, it doesn't match the guitar tone at all because the guitar is so thin and like tinny sounding. It doesn't give it any sort of like emphasis at all. Unfortunately, it's a real like it's such a shame that record. It is completely ruined by its production, unfortunately, because like I've said, I think it's arranged amazingly. I think the actual songwriting on display is incredible, but it's just so spoiled. But yeah.
But then after And Justice for All, we get into the more interesting phase that I think leads us up to where St. Anger spawns from, which is the having reached the the apotheosis of the prog thrash metal genre with And Justice for All. They decide that actually what they'd rather do is go a bit more commercial and do essentially metally hard rock albums, which are the self-titled album, aka the Black Album, which I think is really, really good. And then you've got Load and Reload, which apart from the disgusting covers, which if you don't know what they're about, I would urge you not to look up, because I did in preparation for this, and it's called Load for a reason. And I actually have a lot of time for Load and Reload. I think they're fun rock albums. I get how the hardcore thrash fans wouldn't enjoy them, but it seems like they're a band having fun, and I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I think it helps. It helps Metallica in particular. I don't know what it is about him, but like when you can hear that element of like, oh, they're having a great time in the studio, it just engages you with their music a lot more. And I definitely get that with like everything after seeing Some Kind of Monster and seeing how Kirk was like downtrodden by not being able to solo every time. Like I love.
All right, he went off and surfed. It's fine.
Exactly.
He did his surfing.
But every time
get high when you're surfing.
If you've never watched them on YouTube, you can watch the making of all the music for the most recent album, Hardwired, and every time Kirk turns up in the studio to just lay down an absolute ripping solo, it's like a moment of like pure joy. I'm just like, he got his justice. There he goes.
Justice.
Look at him go. He's having a great time. Every time he just turns up in the studio, he's there to absolutely just rip a solo, and it's fantastic. It made me give such a whole new appreciation for it, and I love that side of things. And again, it's all a part of like Metallica having a great time. Like you can tell like in a lot of those making of videos that they're having a really good time like arranging that record and figuring out how it all works and stuff, regardless of whether the end result was a great one or not. But like it's just
there's a lot of guff. There's a lot of guff on Load and Reload. There's that questionable country rock ballad Mama Said. That might be up until St. Anger the worst thing they've ever committed to record. Are you a Load and Reload fan, Craig?
I think as one of the truths of music is for every double album there's a great album hidden inside if they just edited it down.
Totally.
And that's probably the case for Load Reload. But I think there's songs I enjoy on it, but I think the 90s for Metallica was where they they could have kept on that path of just doing another Injustice for All or another Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I read I went back and read some of the reviews that came out for St. Anger at the time, which then posited back that look, when in the early 90s, that's when like grunge and things came out, which kind of rendered a lot of big hair metal. I know I'm going to get the genres wrong here, but metal with long hair, it put that in a certain light, and perhaps Metallica then, either because they wanted to creatively explore other avenues, which I always love when bands do that.
Yeah, totally.
Or because they wanted to go, see this new metal thing coming around. Or not really in the 90s, but like the just as a reaction to go, okay, we're going to go over here and do something else, and that's when you get like Load Reload, Garage Inc., S&M, which are all all really good albums, but they're not on the same tier of a pure Metallica. It's the four guys in a room, playing. Although the songwriting for Metallica, I've always thought was really weird because they
recorded in isolation. They did all the parts individually up until the Black Album, I think.
Kind of, yeah. They kind of collect all their notes and record bits. Or James and Kirk record lots of guitar bits essentially hand it over to Lars, who will then pick pieces he likes, and then together they kind of build the structure that way. So it's not quite like a full jam album like Saint Anger was kind of attempting to be the first time out. No, we go into the room with nothing. And so they kind of build it up bit by bit. A counter to the, or a really nice complementary documentary to Some Kind of Monsters. You can see a lot of the Black Album being made. I've just found it on YouTube. And you see, again with Bob Rock, right, as like, and you see how much of a parent he's having to be to these unruly 20
that was a dreadful time for him. He nearly didn't come back after that. I believe he had such a bad experience of it that he sort of vowed never to work with the band again for about 5 minutes, and then produced all more of their albums.
Oh, I can see why, because you think you see, or I see now as a slightly older person, how immature the band members actually are. Not just like in terms of it was like there's like porn like everywhere, like that's a really cool thing to put porn on the wall, but just like how emotionally immature they all are. Which really is, you know, the root cause for the implosion that leads to Saint Anger.
That leads to Some Kind of Monster and Saint Anger.
There's a mention of that recently, actually. That Revolver have done a really fantastic article celebrating the anniversary of Load and Reload, and James mentions how, like, because obviously everything blew up so quickly and they were so young when they were making the first record and stuff, they kind of missed out on an awful lot of, like, you know, just growing up experiences. And like during the whole Reload session in particular, James was having a bit of a like relapse, almost like becoming a child again, sort of thing. And he's one of James's pastimes is he does sort of like car enhancements and repairs and modding and things. And he built a hot rod and enjoyed basically driving it above the speed limit and getting chased by the police. So I was like, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, because like there's like some genuine sort of like it makes you appreciate fuel a little bit more.
Wow, it really is a song about cars. There's no metaphor at all.
There's a genuine quality to it. But yeah,
is that the hot rod that he drives in Some Kind of Monster then?
He basically has his own garage, I think, and from what I can.
Is that where Garage Inc. comes from?
I mean, there might also be a little bit of an element to that as well, to be honest with you. It definitely comes from some basis in reality, so yeah. But like you say, that immaturity is definitely part of their career, unfortunately, because they blew up so big, so quickly, so young. They just didn't really have like an outlet to explore those things normally, I guess, you know. But yeah,
I've got this running thread in my head now of like all Metallica's albums being influenced by cars. Like one day he was working on his hot rod on this particular part called the Stanger, and as he looked at it, he thought, that could be an album name. And then he was nearly killed by an electromagnetic at a junkyard incident, and that led to Death Magnetic. Hardwired to self-destruct. It was a really unfortunate car battery accident.
It's about the perils of picking up your air conditioning the wrong way around. There's rewatching the Some Kind of Monsters doc, a part I completely forgot is James draws a potential cover for the Saint Anger album, and it is one of those like monster type hot rod kind of caricature cartoons. I don't know the artist the style, but it looks like can you imagine if they released that as the cover? Now, I really like the cover as it stands. It's just very simple. I like really simple kind of iconography and stuff. And
because if I remember correctly, isn't the cover artist guy? I think he uses the Pusshead as a pseudonym.
Maybe.
I think that, and from what I can gather, he had done artwork for an awful lot of their merchandise and their T-shirts, like prior to this record, and it's the first and only time I think he ever got to draw a cover. So I like that they kept it in-house almost, and it's nice that he got a time to shine almost. Because it's a great cover. It's really striking. I think it really encapsulates the sound of this record perfectly.
Yeah, it also doesn't say the band's name or the title on the front, if I remember right. It's just the fist.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's probably a sticker on it though.
There was absolutely.
I remember the sticker because I was also part of the Day One crew on Saint Anger, and it was a sticker that said over 72 minutes of the heaviest metal you'll ever hear. And I didn't realize at the time that was potentially like a health warning. And those 72 minutes were divided over far fewer songs than I thought would generate 72 minutes worth of music.
Yeah, absolutely. That is definitely a fault of this record, is that the songs do go on a little bit, don't they?
So shall we get into it then? The only other things I want to say before we get in is after this they did 2 albums. Death Magnetic, which is crap. The drums sound like Rice Krispies. It's so compressed. It's not as good as everybody says. It's very overrated. There's Hardwired to Self-Destruct, which I think is a great EP and a bloated album. And if you listen to like the first half of it and then the last track, you'll have a good time.
So my hot take overview is that Saint Anger is the last original album from Metallica. And I think everything else has kind of been a retread. There's the last song, which is the last album, which has real identity to it.
Yeah.
Everything Lewis, you said at the start in terms of like it's a kind of moment in time.
Absolutely.
It's very like it's like a diary page. Well, I mean, you see the documentary, so you see it all unfold. Yeah. It's very honest, but paired with that, I think there are really interesting artistic decisions in how it's made.
Yeah.
And while it also can be criticised for the compression issue, I don't think that's as big an issue in Saint Anger, because the songs and how they're constructed, there isn't really much in the way of quiet parts anyway. So I think if you lifted the compression off, I don't think you'd hear as much of the relief that you do. You play the Guitar Hero Metallica game, it contains uncompressed versions of songs.
Yeah.
And it sounds much better. But they sound like a Metallica tribute act in that album.
Yeah.
They sound like a Metallica cover band.
But this is the thing. I think the mistakes help define the eras. To be honest with you, like Death Magnetic wouldn't be anything without its compression. Like I think you might be able to like bring it back and save it, but like it's like I said, it's a moment in time. Like they were trying to get back that thrash sound and get back to an audience that they thought they'd lost, sort of thing, you know. And I think they need to make the mistakes to define the records. Almost, I think. I don't know. Maybe that's me just being a little bit like romantic about these things, but like I like seeing like where an artist is at a certain time and a certain time and place, and I think it's those defining factors that make the records in a weird way. So yeah. But yes, let's talk about Saint Anger.
Let's get into it. We've stalled long enough. Let the arguments begin. We're on to the first track, and this is Frantic.
My lifestyle determines my dance style. My lifestyle determines my dance style. Keep searching, keep on searching. This search goes on. This search goes on. Keep searching. Search goes on. This search goes on. Tick 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 tock, playing tick 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 tock, playing tick 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 tock, playing tick 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 tick.
Do you guys sing the song along when you edit, or do you just edit that in? Sorry.
We edit that in, but we might just keep that bit in because it's so beautiful. If you sing it yourself, Lewis won't necessarily put the original over the top, so you've been warned. So this is I would say torture from the get-go. Kind of exemplifies the album for me. And the things that I keep coming back to in Saint Anger, and I'm just going to get them off the top of my chest, is that it has lots of interesting ideas that totally disintegrate very quickly into the same muddy riffs. And the main problems are the drums are atrocious, the lyricism is puerile, and the singing is beyond crap, especially on this. So the keep searching.
Yeah, it isn't great, unfortunately. But like we've mentioned, James was going through some serious drink issues and rehab and stuff, and it's obviously shot his voice to absolute shit. But
it's also the fact they only had James for limited hours in a day. So
yeah, exactly.
You get what you get.
Yeah. It was never going to get like retreaded and like, can we do this another take of that, please? So yeah, it's a bit of a shame. I think from the outset we need to like talk about production, because we need to get that out of the way so that we can actually talk about the songs themselves. Production is, as we've said, compressed. There's no quiet, loud dynamic. It is full on. The drums are hideous. The snare sound we need to talk about right now because it is
okay. Can everybody get their best? We need to have at least one. The snare sounds like X, and you're not allowed to say a bin because that's what everybody says. You have to have something else.
Pots and pans.
Okay, pots and pans. Craig, what's your snare analogy? What have you got here? What have you got? What is that?
It's a kalimba. It's a type of musical instrument. But if you just hold it in a really awkward way, it's not far off.
There we go. That's the one.
I have described the drums as a strange warble, like a singing bowl or someone ringing a dinner gong.
Now, this is where I come in, and unironically, I've never had an issue with the snare drum in this album. I think it is I think it is clearly one of the defining features of the album.
I agree, actually.
Now disengaging the snares from the drum, look, everything you say is right. Like, if you whatever you want to describe it as, that is what it sounds like. But I think it only ever adds to and doesn't detract from the songs. Now, it isn't something that I would say should be, and clearly didn't become part of Metallica's signature style. There are some tracks in moments. I was trying to write it down when I was listening to it. There are some moments where the snare is engaged, and you hear it. I can't remember what track it is, but by and large, I think the snare drum is like one of those interesting creative decisions, and it is like nothing else at the time. It's something new, and like, by God, do they commit to it? As for the rest of the drum sound, when people say they sound horrible, what is it that sounds horrible? Because I don't hear it. As being
the rest
bad.
of the drums
it's just the
fine.
snare.
Yeah, it's
just the snare, and it's the fact that that Lars has decided to build an entire album around just the sound of one snare and the cymbals. That's the problem. Is because every song is dong gong dong gong dong gong dong gong dong gong. That's the problem. And occasionally he remembers he has two bass pedals and does his drumble. But the problem is because the drum beats are so repetitive. It's because they all sound the same, and it's one crap sound. There is, I think we'll talk about it later in Dirty Window, which is one part why I think that bongy snare sound is okay, but it's one of the most infamous things about the album.
We can't not talk about this record without it.
For the record, Craig, can you just tell everybody what your degree is in and what your master's thesis was on, so we know you're actually the true authority on this?
Yes, I have a master's degree in physics, specialising in music and acoustics, and my master's project was on electronic synthesis, and it was the physical modelling of the snare drum using the finite difference method. So I spent a year in soundproof rooms and recording studios with a snare drum, banging it over and over and over again. And fun fact, I couldn't model the snares. That was too advanced for me. So I modeled it with the snares disengaged. So and it was only in preparing for this podcast that I go, oh, this might be why I'm okay with the sound of the snare, because I sat and banged away myself.
So we actually have the world's leading expert on this on the podcast.
I can give
apart
you the
from
numbers,
Lars Ulrich himself.
I can give you the maths on how it all comes down.
Does anyone have anything to say about Frantic aside from just sort of a slow, furious exhale?
I've got notes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Frantic, tick, tick, tock, and my lifestyle determines my death style are some of the worst first draft lyrics I've heard on anything. But they're very memorable. The riff, I think, is genuinely very memorable, actually. I love the Frantic riff. That really, really good riff. I really like hearing it, and I think whenever they play it live, people remember, oh, this has a good riff, right? And
there are lots of good riffs in this album. There's nothing wrong with the riffs in this album. The issue is how long they stay on the scene for. And I think is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so.
In terms of like an opening track, what do you want? You want something potentially that is what's the word for it?
Summation,
yes, a summation of what's to come. It's heavy. There are no guitar solos. The songs, when they go wrong, are too long. Any song,
yes,
really, any song which is probably over the 5-minute mark in here can have 1.5 to 2 minutes just snipped out the middle, and I think it would be
agreed.
a different
Yeah.
discussion. The main issue on this one for me, again, I agree, the riff is brilliant. It's then they do variations on it though, which are such minor changes. So it's played low down the neck, and then it's played high, then it's played fast, and then it's played slow, and then it's played on the low, because it's in drop C, so it's a low C string, and then it's played on the high. And it's the same thing though. It's like it's minor variations with no effect. So you just get the same riff over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And the lyrics, and you see it in the documentary. A lot of the times, Hetfield's there with the mic in hand, and he's just going for it. And they're all maybe writing stuff down, but there aren't enough lyrics to justify the length of this song.
And so that comes up again and again. Yes, where it's like, here's the verse again, but we're not going to change anything. We're just going to do it again. It happens again in Saint Anger in particular, but there's not enough ideas to sustain it.
Exactly.
The other thing is that the lyrics in a lot of these songs, compared to other Metallica albums, are totally disengaged from the rest of the music. They're not quite syncopated, but they're not really in sync at all.
Yeah.
Like the way that he does the vocal delivery on the verses of Frantic is really strange. It's, no, 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 do, 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 yeah, 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 yeah. That's my James Hetfield impression. Ooh, yeah. But it's so that happens quite a lot, where it just sounds like it was recorded in another universe.
Yeah, I have a theory here, and I think it's because, as Craig mentioned, this is an album where they downtune, and it's not something that they typically do up until this point. They're very much, they traditional tuning for guitars, but on Saint Anger, obviously everything is massively downtuned, and I don't think it suits Hetfield's range. So he has to sort of like make up for that by almost distorting his voice naturally to a point where it's like everything is kind of overdriven, and like it's got that heat to his voice, where it's like kind of crunchy sort of sound, and it just doesn't lend it. The music doesn't lend itself to his style. He needs that more traditional, higher end guitar playing for him to sort of like sit comfortably vocally with it, and it doesn't work here. He never sounds like he's comfortable with the actual like musicianship at any given point, because it's all so much lower than he's normally used to. In this song in particular, he gets that forced sort of strained scream in it, where it's like that, and it's like it doesn't quite.
He turns into a rooster.
Exactly. It's like because he just doesn't have the vocal training for screaming, and it's like it never matches up with what they've decided to write. Unfortunately, I think maybe if they'd written this with traditional guitar tuning, I don't know whether it would have sounded good, but like it would at least have put Hetfield's voice back into the range that he's more comfortable with.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I think some of these songs, it's almost like it's the kind of difference between sculpting something out of clay, where they're kind of putting pieces onto the table and they're shaping it and going, okay, well, this kind of goes here, and because they've shaped this arm over that direction, it kind of means the head kind of needs to go over here, and so you end up with something that's like nearly 6 minutes long, but with very few lyrics, very few riffs.
Yeah.
And the other thing which you haven't mentioned yet is that I think this is the first time they use Pro Tools. So I think this is potentially the first time they jumped into using like a digital editor or a digital audio workstation. So because Black Album is definitely cut on tape, because you see people in the background doing what is just like magic. I can't imagine how you do that. And Hetfield mentions it in one of their therapy sessions that, we've got a verse, chorus, verse, and then Bob will loop it 3 times and then go, right, what lyrics have you got? And it's like, well...
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, totally.
That does sum up the album. Yeah.
Sometimes, though, they get a story or they have a lyrical idea that can sustain... can work over the length. This one, though, doesn't. A song, it's meant... I found online, because I don't have my booklet anymore, because I've just chucked it all on a CD wallet. Seems like the song, James says the song is about searching for a solution to death. That doesn't really come across to me.
No, not at all.
No, this song's lyrics are completely incoherent.
Yeah.
And the reason they're incoherent is because they all sat around with notepads coming up with lines that they thought sounded good, and they pulled all the best ones together and said that'll do. And that's like to go back to your clay analogy, Craig. It's like they've got an arm here, they've got a leg here, and then they step back and they go, hold on a minute. This isn't clay. This is shit. I've been molding a pile of shit. I've been polishing this turd.
Interestingly,
Shall we-
Lars wanted this to be the name of the album as well.
Right.
So I'm also
Frantic.
wondering whether,
okay.
again, another bit from the documentary, and they don't want it because it sounds like they're potentially out of control and stuff, which is a very like. I don't think anyone's going to think. No one thought. When you said "ride the lightning," thought that you were actually riding lightning. So I almost wonder whether the fact that became the opener was almost a compromise to Lars on that, but I don't know. But
Yeah, that's an interesting point.
I'd call this album My World.
Oh, it definitely is their world, isn't it?
Sucker.
We should move on because we're only on track one.
God, this is gonna be a double album, and then you, listener, can go in and pick the song discussions that you liked best to make a good single podcast. Okay, let's talk about Saint Anger.
Fuck it all and no regrets. I hit the lights on these dark sets. I need a voice to let myself go free. Fuck it all and fucking no regrets. I hit the lights on these dark sets. Battalion news. I'll hang myself. Saint Anger around my neck.
We need to talk about this because this won a Grammy.
Whoa, okay. I mean, all kinds of weird metal songs win Grammys. While you guys tell me what you think of Saint Anger, I'm gonna go look it up in the background and see what has won the Grammy for best metal performance.
Yeah. So this is such a weird song, and it's so weird that it's like the defining song for the record. It's such a random assortment of song parts that I don't think really melds together correctly. I don't think Metallica doing time changes will ever sound like normal to me. I know they've done it in the past, and I know the earlier stuff, especially, those first 4 records, can get a little bit progressive, and there are time changes and things like that. But they feel like they flow correctly. They don't on Saint Anger. It feels like the pieces are just sort of like dropped in place, and it's like, and then we'll have this riff which doesn't quite match the previous like riff that's come before it, and they'll completely turn the distortion off the guitars, and it's just like, this doesn't fit, guys. It doesn't really work to me. The drums on this in particular are really awful sounding. I hate the way that Lars's first sort of like dun 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 beat doesn't come in at the start of the riff. It like misses a beat, and he plays like behind the beat of the song. It's so strange, and it feels really unnatural, and yeah, I just saying, like, I think the song is also twice as long as it really should have been. It doesn't have enough ideas to maintain its length, unfortunately.
There's a moment at the 5-minute mark where I'm like, that is a good song, and then it restarts. It's almost the same kind of section for section as the intro. You're absolutely right in terms of like those kind of changes. And it happens quite a lot in the album where there's typically a kind of cleaner guitar verse, which then either jumps straight into a very distorted pre-chorus or chorus. In this track, it is kind of like whiplash.
Really
and
is.
It also, I can only imagine it. It's not. I can't. It's only. I imagine it comes because of the way again they recorded it, and where you could cut sections in and drop it in and go, oh well, maybe this kind of works, and then that somehow sets the template, and you don't try and write something that will go, transition you from your heavy to smooth sections. I kind of like it though, and I think
this is the thing, right?
In the song
Craig,
about
totally.
anger here and snapping into anger, thematically it kind of works for me in this track.
Absolutely, and look, I sounded massively negative there, right? But this song is pretty iconic in a weird way. There's something about it where I'm just like, hang on a minute, I don't hate this. And the proof in the pudding is I own both CD single versions of this song with the different B-sides for some reason. It is so strange. I don't think it really works on the whole, but there is something about it that is very iconic and definite, and nobody forgets Saint Anger, right? Like everybody knows how Saint Anger goes, right? It's strange in that sense.
The main riff isn't far removed from the kind of Master of Puppets.
That's true.
Riff.
That's true, isn't it? Yeah.
It's kind of down there. It's a similar, little tight collection of semitones and whatnot. And I think that kind of helps a little bit, whereas it's not as huge a departure from their older style.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not as like it's nowhere near as intricate as the Master of Puppets riff, because it's almost like it's the first half of it. Because Master of Puppets is this is just 8 minutes says here we go. Like I think the ding gong ding gong. I think the opening riff's quite catchy, and although it's definitely more radio friendly than some of the other tracks, and I think in retrospect it's not actually that representative of the album as a whole.
No,
it's
I don't think so either.
It's quite different from the rest of them, but it's got a bit. One of the things I think about Saint Anger is it's kind of like Metallica does new metal, and this is like, especially the lyrics, is like asking your dad to write lyrics to what he thinks Slipknot sound like, having not heard Slipknot, and it's got a little bit of a. Sometimes the percussion in this does have that raw Slipknot feel to it, without the snare sound. But it's interesting that we'll sort of dip in and out of some kind of monster. But one of the things they talk about is they have this discussion about guitar solos. And this is 1 hour 15 into the movie, and my watch pinged me and said, "You should go read a book." But true story. It reminds me every night. But they're talking about we don't want to do what everybody else is doing and record solos and stuff. So instead, what they do is they don't record solos, which is what everybody was doing at the time.
Yeah.
So it becomes dated in this weird new metal way instead. But they're not quite getting what makes that music work. It's not just apply the drop tones and drop the solos. It is keep things shorter and punchier.
Yeah,
which is what they don't do. This is just so fucking long.
And
that's why you can do a radio edit. And Jess, we listened to this in the car today, and she had never heard the full album version before.
Oh, really?
Like, oh my god! And she didn't know, because you can just randomly scrub through any track in this album, and it all just sounds the same. This is just two ideas. There's the slightly less loud bit where he's talking about Saint Anger around his neck, and then there's the bit about he feels his world shake like an earthquake, and it's just that 3 times. That 3 times. Bit of a smudge near the end, but it's really just verse, chorus, same verse, same chorus, same verse, same chorus, end.
Yeah, I mean the lyrics are direct transcriptions from their therapy sessions, right? Like, I want my anger to be healthy. No, I like lyrics like that. Like, I really like kind of plain, unassuming lyrics. Like,
well, it's honest, isn't it?
Oh,
Absolutely.
I love the colourful clothes she wears. Like the Beach Boys. Like, suddenly it's this new thing. I'm not saying like this is kind of Brian Wilson levels of intricacy here, but I again, like, fuck it all and fucking no regrets. I kind of like stuff like that.
Fucking no regrets.
And then it's like I Hit the Lights on These Dark Sets, and I always wondered whether Hit the Lights was a callback to Hit the Lights, the track.
Totally. They love doing that sort of thing. So I think so, absolutely.
And there is for me, the lyrics on this one, it has the issue again of I could have used with a wee bit more development in here, but like the lyrics strike a nice balance between that. It's very clearly their therapy sessions, and there's a little bit of imagery going on in terms of Saint Anger around my neck, the noose and hang myself and all that kind of stuff. That kind of idea of development, though, is another thing that I think could have helped the album, where if you're going to have 3 choruses in a song, your first chorus is generally a bit plain. You add a little bit to it on the second chorus, and then you go all out bells and whistles on the third. That the part of their mission statement here was like, no overdubs, no none of that kind of touching up, embellishments, and it that's cool. Like, raw, fast, heavy. That's kind of a punk aesthetic, but there's a reason there's no punk songs that go 8 minutes long.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very, very true.
Interesting.
Okay,
Also,
shall we?
The live version has a guitar solo now. I've saw on YouTube.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Squeeze in.
What does it sound like? Just a lot of wah-wah pedals?
It sounds like Kirk Hammett. And his guitar falling down the stairs on a wah pedal. I mean, it's the usual. It's fine, but it's just squeezed right in there. I don't think there's really any change to, like, there's no new bridge or anything. It's just like jammed in on it over a section. Yeah,
I don't know whether solos would unfortunately save an awful lot of these songs, to be honest with you. But
not if the songs got even longer.
Yeah, absolutely. God. Right.
So let's talk. Oh, you get another.
I've got one
Craig
thing. I've got one
putting his
thing. I
hand
came,
up
I
like
came
he
up with.
wants
I
to
came up with
tell
a
the teacher.
I came up with a trivia question.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So allegedly, the Saint Anger thing came from James getting a Saint Christopher pendant. But
Right,
that doesn't
okay.
make sense because Saint Christopher is the patron saint of traveling, not anger. So, who is the patron saint of anger? He's got three choices. Is it A, Saint Jerome, a 4th century priest who transcribed scripture, who beat his own chest with a rock? Or is it B, Saint Giles, a 7th century hermit who only drank the milk of female deers? Or is it C, Saint Hammett, a 21st century heavy metal guitar player who put up with James and Lars' bullshit for all those years?
Well, the latter never got respect, would fit with the song. I don't know. I mean, there's a Saint Giles Cathedral in Oxford, so I think that's unlikely to be Saint Giles. I know it's a cathedral, it's a church. I'm gonna go with Saint Jerome.
Yeah, I was going to say Saint Jerome.
That is correct. Saint Giles is the patron saint of breastfeeding.
Craig Wilson, new dad, everyone. Oh my god.
Let's talk about some kind of monster, eh?
Some kind of monster. Some kind of monster. Some kind of monster. This monster lives.
What is going on here? Okay, so I've written my own lyrics for this one, and they are: "This is the song that ain't so bad. This is the riff that is quite rad."
I did something similar. I said, "This is the blank that blanks the blank." Like, this is the end that will never end. This is the end, beautiful friend, the end. This is the story all about how my life got turned upside down.
Great.
This is the
Like,
first
this
of the
one,
8-minute boss fights of the album.
This to me actually sounds more like something off Load Reload,
Yeah.
around the 2-minute mark, and it's probably the most comfortable the band sounds. Now I'm not sure if this is off the Presidio sessions, but it's certainly the track they focus on this earlier in the movie, which makes me think that they've recorded it first. It's got a bit of the I Disappear wah wah sound.
Yeah.
There's still like so much weird shit. Like the guitar sounds totally disconnected from the drums at the beginning. Like they're in two different worlds. Again, it's 8 minutes long.
Yep.
And 4 minutes long would have been more than enough.
Yeah.
And
it's quite a mid-paced sort of stompy song, isn't it? So like to drag it on that long feels like quite a trudge. Actually, it's very repetitive. I do like that Kurt gets to play a lead guitar part. That's quite nice, even if it is just over and over again.
I love the tones of that. The tone of all the guitars are great. It's just what they play is.
Do you know what? It reminds me of him. Like in particular, there's a Razorblade Romance like guitar sound, which almost sounds like a fax machine, and it's got that sort of quality to it.
It's got a real. It's like a crackle and crunch.
Yeah. Totally.
It's almost like the sound of when you plug a headphone jack in and out, tuned to perfection. It's that kind of
completely
static.
overblown.
Yeah.
It's as distorted as you can really get because the signal's dying.
Yeah. It's fine. It doesn't strike me as one of the best songs on the record. I do like the riff. Don't get me wrong. I think they're another great riff early on, which helps drive the sort of song through. But I just think it's a little bit sloppy. Unfortunately, it's a very repetitive, bit of a trudge. It's too long.
The lyrics are shit to the point of hilarity, though. I think my favorite bit. There's two bits that I particularly like. It's the bit where the chorus is just for no explicable reason. We the people. Why is that going to be like? What's that? We what? What? We the people? What?
I can only imagine that it came out of a therapy session. Because, like, what We the People is like the kind of U.S. Constitution, right? Begins with
it's an American Constitution. Yeah.
So I don't know if they were trying to do some kind of like mission statement thing, but the rest of the lyrics, because they're so committed to that structure of this is the blank that blanks the blank. You just become numb to it. Like I literally went through. I was going to do like another trivia to see like which of these is the real lyric, and I was like, some of these are so bad. I can't think of one that's worse. Like, it's just...
I've got I can get the lyrics up here quite quick. I've got Unnamed Feeling open because I wanted to know what they sort of... It's some kind of monster.
I mean, this is the flood that drains these eyes. It's okay.
This is the feel that's not so safe. This is the face you'll never change.
This is the circles in which we run? Is that one?
This is the... I don't think... No, this is the cloud that swallows trust. This is the black that uncolors us. Yeah.
Dire.
It just doesn't. It doesn't work.
This is the trap that smells so good.
Yeah. What? It just doesn't work it's not connected to the chorus, and I think, had you not seen in the documentary where they come up, I forget the context, but they come up with the phrase, some kind of monster. They're just talking about it, like, oh, that's a really good name for a song. I would have thought like they were talking about the song, because it is a Frankenstein monster of different bits stitched together. I think you're right, Alan. There's definitely different sections of different takes of songs that just hard cut from one bit to another. Different from other songs where there's like the whiplash between a clean and a verse. There's just full on different jam sessions happening here, and that's how you get to 8 minutes. And then you go, oh Christ, how are we gonna sing over this?
I mean, it is. See, I think this song is more emblematic of what the album's like and the documentary, because it sums up what the album's like. It's just some kind of monster. Yeah. It's like, this is the bit from over here. This is the bit from over there. My other favorite vocal bit is at the end, the weird ominous, 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 ominous. What?
I quite like that though.
I like it too, but I like it in an ironic way.
It has no relevance to anything else though, which is, again, it's like an interesting idea, but it's like if they set up some idea of like a druid chant, or maybe it's like, oh, you're in like aren't we all just like chanting along in society? Like, no, there's no like thought to it. It's just kind of there.
But this is where the movie gives you that. But the movie gives you that context, because the lyrics are written by committee, and so they were more concerned with sounding profound and being honest and truly meaningful. And there's definitely a difference between songs like this and Frantic, where they all sat around with pads of paper, versus some of the other songs which are much more honest, and obviously coming from James Hetfield. I think things like Unnamed Feelings probably a good example. Or Sweet Amber is another confessional one, and I think like, okay, the lyrics are still bad, but I think they're more honest kind of bad.
This is a forming.
This is in a t-shirt.
Yeah, this is a forming song. This clearly early on in the recording. I think they're discovering what the sound is going to be in it. But my God, I wish they revisited it, or were able to revisit it and rewrite it. It's definitely also the point of the album where, if anyone didn't realize they were in for a lot of repetition, it's going to hit them now. Yeah, totally. It's also the moment where I remember there's a bass guitar in the album. There's just like a little slide at one point, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's a bass here.
and the bass in this album, in case anybody thinks it's Rob Trujillo, it's not. It's Bob Rock.
Yes,
because Rob doesn't join the band until after this has been recorded. He joins before they tour it. That's why they get him, because they have to appear an MTV icon. And not only are they not going to get Jason Newsted, they're not even going to acknowledge his existence. And they're going to pretend that the new guys in Metallica, because they're nothing if not petulant and disrespectful to each other.
What do you guys think of the last 10 seconds of the song? I always forget it's there. It's this inexplicable little kind of thing. And then
oh yeah, God, yeah. I know what you're on about now. That is odd. Yes. It's almost like you say, because it's all written like a big jam session. It's like, well, how the hell do we end this song, right?
Jesus, that's bizarre. I think you need to cut that. You need to cut that in, Lewis. Especially from, totally. Like, when it goes to the riff and it's bang, 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 bang. Wow, that's odd. Yeah,
it's weird because they just like Bob Ross says, like they don't want Bob Rock. Sorry, not Bob Ross. I'm gonna put have a little drum solo here. He says like they don't want afterthoughts, but there's so many times. There's a couple other songs where they do this. They just add some weird clip right to the end of the track,
because they don't have the end of songs, right? Yeah. It's just like we just here's something, right? That'll do. Move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Let's
we
move
should
on.
move
so up
on.
next, we should move on because I need to pee already. We've probably about 10 tracks left to do. Okay, Dirty Window and then a comfort break then.
I see my reflection in the window. It looks different, so different than what you see. Projecting judgment on the world. This house is clean, man. This house is clean.
Dirty Window. So Lars Ulrich was interviewed about the drum sound in this album, or perhaps, I don't know, interrogated is probably the right choice. And he said that the drum tone for the snare was deliberate because it harmonized with the rest of the music. And at the beginning of Dirty Window, and only at the beginning, only at this point in the entire album, you can hear that. Yeah. I think it's the only time at which you go, oh yes, that's acceptable.
This is my favorite track of the album. Love it.
You're meant to keep that
Sorry.
to the end,
Oh,
Craig.
sorry. Okay, edit that.
Oh, that's okay. We'll remember that for later. But
I love Dirty Window as well. I think it's great. I think the riff is awesome. Do 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 do. I'm just like, oh yeah, let's have a fucking mosh pit, mate. It's nice and fast and thrashy. It's loads and loads of fun, and that's kind of what I want from Metallica. The one thing I also wanted to mention about this is when James does the whole "and I slam my gavel down." I'm just like, he could have probably done a more effective growly low scream for this record instead of the weird high pitched pained one that he does all the time. Like, why didn't he use that more? It sounds good.
he's not a bad singer, really.
Not at all.
And it's interesting that whenever there's parts in some kind of monster, he's warming up before they go on tour, and he's doing just me, this little tape, and it sounds fine.
Yeah.
I think it is a product of he was only there for 4 hours a day.
Yep.
And we've got a bit of time at the end. We can talk about Metallica's lunch break tactics. But he's only there for 4 hours a day, and Bob Rock said that it was very difficult to get anything good out of him. So and I think previously they would have pushed him for many more takes.
Yeah.
To get the good ones out, but this time they didn't do that, and it shows. Like, you told me before, Lewis, you thought this one was pretty good, and I said, St. Anger's guff. And you're like, oh, Dirty Window, mate, Dirty Window. The riff's not bad. I don't mind that sort of Latin-esque bridge. It's quite interesting. And I think this has the most honest line in the album, which is, I drink from the cup of denial.
And I love the way he sings
amazing.
that. It's such a kind of ugly, like, again, it's a weird choice that works in this song.
Yeah. No, I really like Dirty Window. I think it's a great song. I think, if I remember correctly, for the 10th anniversary of St. Anger, they did a weird, like, one-off performance with Bob Rock on bass.
Yes.
And it was this song. And it's so annoying that you can't find a nice high-quality version of it. I'd love to hear it. But yeah, like, because Metallica are very good at, like, archiving lots of, like, live stuff on their YouTube channel. They've been doing, like, these things with Metallica Mondays over the summer, where they've just been uploading an entire show. And it's really fun to watch, actually, just, like, see where they are at that place and time and what they're doing. But yeah, Dirty Window never seems to show up, and I'm just like, oh, I'd really like to see this live.
Yeah,
I'm quite surprised they played it again, because they only ever really play Saint Anger and Frantic.
Yeah, that's it.
You're a Guitar Hero Metallica fan, Craig. Are there any songs from Saint Anger in Guitar Hero Metallica?
Frantic is the only song on it, and on Metallica's site they actually have play counts, and you're right, Frantic and Saint Anger are by far the most. Dirty Window has only got a couple, and I also watched this video with Bob Rock playing, and I just have written in all caps, Bob Rock strums the bass like a ukulele. And you've got Rob Trujillo, the big silverbacker tarantula man, stomping about with his big meaty fingers, and then Bob's like going a-dick-a-dick-a-dick-a-dick-a-dick with his little wrist flapping about.
Yeah. It definitely comes from a different time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can do your bit in Dirty Window.
Go for it.
I think this is the first time where the lyrics, I think, really step up to the plate, in that there is a strong lyrical imagery metaphor of, like, the dirty window, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm in my house. I think it's all nice and clean, but people looking out, or people looking in through the dirty window, think it's otherwise, and it's all that kind of, how do people see you? Rejection of how people see you. And then going into the whole judgment kind of section, of the judge, jury, executioner stuff. I forget what's it, protector, all that kind of stuff.
Projector, protector, rejector, infector. Projector, rejector, infector, injector, defector, effector. It's a bit like the David Draymond school of writing, where just every word ends in "ation," so it automatically rhymes.
It's never the greatest way to write a set of lyrics, but it's still, at least like I say, the imagery all works. It's positively a short song coming in at just over 5 minutes. And yeah, Lewis, as you said, the riff is an absolute belter. It is, absolutely. Though, another... Because so many of the songs are written in this kind of dropsy tuning. Okay, that might. I wanted to do like a big kind of musical analysis of this and like what key is each song in. I didn't manage to do that, but I just know from having played them, most of the riffs tend to play the kind of C, D sharp, and F. So they're all in like a kind of C minor-y kind of area. And with that 035, on the frets, you can kind of play most of the album.
Oh, really?
Kind of. It's not far off from like Some Kind of Monster. It's the same as Dirty Window, which isn't too far off from like Purify. And so I think on a first listen, again, I don't blame anyone for going, these songs are all the bloody same. Having listened to it, and that will never really leaving my side for so many years, I kind of feel the difference more than I think there is any. But the song, it just has a kind of tightness to it and a focus that isn't apparent, and I can only imagine it means it must have been written near the end of the sessions.
Maybe.
One of the things that sticks out for me from Some Kind of Monster is when they're packaging it up for the record executive, they talk about how they've got about 30 songs, and it's like that in The Simpsons. It's like, we did 30 takes and that was the best one. Shall we move on to Invisible Kid?
Yes, let's do that.
Invisible kid, never see what he did. Got stuck where he hid, falling through the grid. Invisible kid, got a place of his own, where he'll never be known, in a word he's grown.
So, what do we think of this one?
I like the riff at the start again.
What a riff! I'm serious. This is a really good riff.
Yeah, it's a great riff.
Although 1 minute into the song, I looked at my music app and I was wondering how the fuck this 3-minute song was going to last for 8 minutes.
Yeah, it's another one of those, isn't it? I think it's a bit average on the whole, to be honest with you. Nothing really memorable outside of that opening riff. Far too long. What I do like though is the weird delivery of "Open your mind on being right here, right now." That always amuses me.
There's a lot of weird stuff to this. Like it goes a bit kind of early Tool / Deftones. About 2 minutes in there. I'm a kid just going. It's quite Deftonesy. And I was also quite impressed. These are my notes at the gym when I was listening to this. Also quite impressed with the midsection. It is basic, and this is where the lack of solo hurts. But oh my god, what is this? It sucks now.
Pure. I love it.
There's a good short rock song in here, but it's got a shit rock song stuck in the middle. and I don't think you can say that for the whole album. I think most of the songs are straight up bad, but this one I quite like the riff.
There you go. We got 3 songs.
I actually quite enjoy Invisible Kid, but it's mainly carried through by the strength of the riff and the charming shittiness of the lyrics.
And what helps as well, it's in a different tuning from the rest, so it's three whole steps down with a further kind of step down on the so it's like an A flat on the A string. So the guitar is very, very, it's like actually the low string of the guitar is almost like a bass A string. It's heavy as all hell, like very low and rattly. And it does give it instantly gives it a kind of identity that it sets it apart from the rest. It's one of the lesser liked songs for me because it's 8.5 minutes of a 3-minute song. And the where I like James. Also, I think of this as the Kirk Hammett song. I don't know if Kirk Hammett wrote it. I like to imagine it's about Kirk Hammett right? Invisible Kid got stuck where he hid, falling through the grid. Also, you can just replace Invisible Kid with Kirk Hammett got stuck where he hid. You know, Kirk Hammett in a place of his own. Well, he'll never be known. In a word, he's surfing.
Kirk falling through the grid.
But
Kirk Hammett locked away in his brain from the shame and the pain. World down the drain. He's suspicious of your touch. Don't want no crutch. But it's all too much. Are you okay, Kirk? I'm okay. Just go away into distance. Let me fade.
yeah, I just think it is because he's such a kind of a victim and a bystander of most of the conflict and trauma in that band.
Later on the recording sessions in verse 7, Kirk, what a good boy you are. Out of the way, and you've kept yourself. Ooh, can't you see that he's not here? He doesn't want the attention you give. Ooh, unplugging from it all. Kirk Hammett floats alone in his room. Ooh, what a quiet boy you are.
Yeah.
Kirk looks so calm, floating round and around himself.
Alan.
That's all the lyrics. Let's move on.
The what a good boy you are part, I wrote down like this is the first of James' character acting choices, where he's debuting a new SNL character called Cheek Pinching Ant, where he's like, ooh, what a good boy you are. Again, I like the idea. In this case, the execution fails miserably for me.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like, is this so bad it's good, or is it just bad?
He does another one and Shoot Me Again, which we'll get to.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, we're not there just yet, but we should probably talk about My World, hey?
It's my world now.
Sucker!
Oh my...
Sucker!
Yes! Did Fred Durst write this song?
It's my world, sucker!
Again, it's silly and fun, and it made me smile, and I like this song. It's a lot of fun. I think this is a great song. It's the one pained, straining scream where I really enjoy it. I don't even know what the question is.
Absolutely.
I actually okay. So first of all, this is for whom the snare tolls, and the drums are really terrible in this track. It sounds like Lars is playing a fire poker. And again, it's amazingly self-indulgent. The song just goes on forever, and it wouldn't be that bad a performance. And I really like the bridge. Not only do I not know the answer, and I actually really like that. But it's not 4 minutes; it's 6.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit slighter than most of the songs on this record, so a little bit. There's some reprieve, I suppose. I think this is one of the songs up there with Dirty Window for me that I do come back to quite a lot. Actually, I think it's silly and funny, and it sounds like they're having a laugh, and I will always treasure that.
This is a song that when I was going through it on a re-listen, I liked it the more I thought about it. Weirdly, I think this is actually probably the best drumming on the album. In that there's a lot of different drum sections, and they always work to serve either what the guitar is doing or to accent off what the vocals are doing.
Yeah, I can see
that. For example, on the
Yeah.
It's My World Sucker has got a kind of hi-hat hit, I think, on the end
totally.
that kind of tees it up. It's My World, You Can't Have It has these kind of rolling toms which give a different atmosphere to what happens on other parts of the album, and it's got a good groove to it.
Yeah.
I think it's a song just about the therapist, right? Like, because there's a point where they totally reject him, and like not only do I not know the answer, I don't even know what the question is. It's my world, you can't have it, motherfuckers in my head. Like, I assume that this is just about the therapist.
It's a pretty good interpretation of it, I think. Yeah, totally.
And then there's that, but then there's the end bit where it's just him shouting "enough's enough" over and over
and
over.
It doesn't meet the rhythm of the song at all. Absolutely, yeah.
I was like, I agree. Enough's enough. Enough's enough.
So I imagine.
But then it also ends on "It's my world." Because we can't say sucker because that would just be stupid, right?
Sucker.
For me, the enough's enough part is it reminds me of the standout moment of the documentary when the therapist pushes a post-it note across the table with some lyrics that he's written on them. And the band, and it's really what unites Metallica back together as a unit. It's their complete repulsion at the concept of this. But yeah, it's a tight song, man. I think it's totally a good length as well.
Yeah, I agree.
You could trim stuff from it, but not whole sections like other songs. There's probably just two repeats of a riff rather than 4, something like that. Oh, I have another lyric trivia if you want.
Okay,
right.
go on.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Because
yeah.
I was really surprised looking at the lyrics of this song. So this is just simple. Which of the following is the lyric from the song? Is it
Okay.
A, devil knows it only rains on me? B, God, it feels like it only rains on me? Or C, why does it only rain on me? Is it because I lied when I was 17?
It's God. It feels like it only rains on me.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's the best album for me to do karaoke to because I have a tin ear. So that doesn't matter for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's authentic. I'm in tune.
Right, should we talk
so
about
next-
Shoot Me Again?
Yeah, let's talk about Shoot Me Again, the song about Napster.
Stand silent in flames. Stand tall till it fades. Shoot me again, I ain't dead yet. Come on, shoot me again, I ain't dead yet.
Right, before we do anything here, guys, I would like to ask you both, have you heard You Only Live Once by Suicide Silence?
No.
Right, go and listen to the intro right now. Both of you.
Okay, right. Jesus Christ, this is...
Push your care, push your burdens aside. Erase everything inside and leave just one thing on your mind.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there you go. Suicide Silence, clearly influenced by Shoot Me Again by from Metallica Saint Anger.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just the moment every time that hits, I'm just like, Suicide Silence. Yeah,
Except it came about, you had a decade before it.
exactly.
Oh,
Yeah, this is
what do you
another
th-
mediocre, stompy number with an annoying, repetitive lyric. And yeah, I really don't like the "Shoot me again, I ain't dead yet."
Shoot me
So
again, I ain't dead yet.
So stupid.
If you had to sum that up in a character from the James Hetfield character acting masterclass, would you say it was Zombie Sheriff Badass? Shoot me again, I ain't dead yet. Shoot me again, I ain't dead yet.
Bang, 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 bang.
There's a good graphic novel in this album, isn't there?
The many faces of James Hetfield.
What do you think of
Yeah,
this one,
I'm
Alan?
not the
Oh, sorry.
biggest fan of this one. Yeah, it's very long and repetitive, and just the lyrics are so, again, first drafty. It's like, that's I've got this phrase, "Shoot me again," right? Like that's cool and interesting. Like I'm sure I can beat that to death.
I think even by the low standards of Saint Anger, this is pretty dire.
Yeah,
Easily
yeah.
the worst track yet. Weak riff, pathetic lyrics. The vocals are awful. There's really not a lot of redeeming quality here, and it's 7 minutes long. And I think around 5 minutes, I was like, God, can I get away with not listening to all of this for the podcast? But if you listen all the way to the end, there's a new metal breakdown that ain't so bad.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Some reprieve, I guess.
So I think there's like a pretty
yeah,
good groove in the verses, though. Like a lot of the album, the two guitars are really just doubling each other up. Maybe one's up an octave, maybe one's down. It's relatively few times that they're doing different things. And they're kind of one's playing these kind of long notes with an effect over it, and the other is kind of sitting a bit more kind of in a rhythmic place with the drums.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. And like I say, I like the lyrics. I like the idea of like writing a song about Napster. It kind of needs to happen. You see it in the documentary, and they're kind of talking with Lars about it, and you get that whole like, he says like, was it even worth it? And it's like, very good question. Arguably, no, but like historically, when you look back, I think it was really worth it.
The
sacrifice they made.
Well, it's like I got into Metallica through pirated music. It was incredibly short-sighted thing that burned them with a generation of potential fans, because we now know in the fullness of time that people who download music also buy more music because they like music. If people don't like the music, they're not going to get it by any means.
And I'm not a fan of streaming as such. I think as a revenue source, streaming must suck as an artist. I can only assume
completely,
very little for it. But it was what we had as a way to go and explore music. You just had to go grab the MP3 because there wasn't as good access to streaming audio of any form. Like even trying to play radio stations, I think at the time over early 2000 internet connection.
Yeah. Exactly.
It barely existed. You'd have had to download like Real Player or something like that. And I don't think it was something anybody would have bothered with, because you didn't really have digital radio.
Yeah.
By that point, it probably still would have been FM. So it's like, well, what's the point in using your dial-up modem to connect listen to Chris Moyles or some Radio 1 puke? Why would you bother? Anyway, this song's about Napster. This song is pretty bad.
Yeah.
shall we just move on?
It's got the only bass section I think in the album where the bass guitar is actually doing something of importance. I think right near the intro, right, is you get the kind of hammer on, and then it's immediately thrust back into obscurity and irrelevance.
Exactly.
I think the thing that annoys me about this album in general is that it just feels lazy and perfunctory. Even if you're like, oh, this is a pretty good groove, it's still worse than pretty much anything on Load Reload. It's such a lazy. None of the riffs are particularly interesting, and it's not like there was some kind of void in music and nobody's releasing interesting albums at this point. Everybody else there's plenty of stuff to draw from. It's the whole thing about this album and Metallica at this point in the movie. It's just the amazing self-indulgence and insularity of it all. And the feeling you get is that they're really just trying to fart this one out because of obligations to the record company. And they really don't care.
No,
it's just such cynical crap.
Nice. I come back to it. It's the band actually trying to discover themselves. But the first note I wrote down about this album is it's a group of emotionally stunted men in their 40s try and fail to talk about their emotions. Now, and so the music, this sounds sacrilegious to say, and it is kind of excusing the album. The actual content of some of the songs is secondary to the fact that the song was written at all. Now there are moments where it's great, like Dirty Anger, Dirty Window, and even in moments in Sweet Anger.
Window.
Oh my god, I've forgotten. This is what.
It's all the same. It's all the same sludge.
This is more what having a 4-month-old baby does to you in terms of sleep, which is also where I've listened to a lot of this album at night while rocking a baby to sleep. But like I think so I don't know if it can be said that it's lazy because it's so off the circumstances, right? I think the later albums that came after it I would attribute more lazy tags to, in terms of retreads of songs. We don't need another Unforgiven. For God's sake,
the Unforgiven 3.
We absolutely did not need this Shoot Me Again.
True that.
Okay, well maybe something that took 2 years to record when James was coming in and out of rehab. It's not fair to call it lazy. It's still not good. It's still not good. All right, Sweet Amber.
Ooh, she holds my hand, and I lie against my. Using what I want to get what you want. Using what I want to get what you want. Using what I want to get what you want. Using what I want to get what you want. Ooh, Sweet Amber, how sweet are
Yeah, speaking of not good.
It was okay until the singing started. Craig's
yeah.
raising his hands in disagreement, like the ref has called it offside.
Go on, Craig.
I love this riff. And again, next to Dirty Window, one of my favourites off the album. I think this song,
really?
I think this song with relatively little changes could actually slot into a lot of Metallica albums.
Okay.
Certainly of the later years, it would sit in Death Magnetic, not too wrong. We've mentioned already the kind of weird fan recordings out there, like in terms of the Injustice for Jason. Have you guys come across Saint Anger 2015?
Yes, I have.
Yes, because you sent it to me and just before this show, so yes, I have come across it.
Yeah, so folk like re-recorded it. I think you could do something like that with Sweet Amber in the style of other albums. I think it's really cool. Now Metallica clearly don't, because they've only ever played it once live.
Wow.
And I found, I guess, a bit of the YouTube clip, and their timing goes all over the shop.
Yeah.
A criticism again of this album is that the drums don't keep time. I don't know if it's just because I've listened to it for so long, but I don't feel
they're perfunctory, aren't they?
Yeah. Much.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they're out of time. Like, although Lars gets a lot of flack, I think his early drumming's pretty good, but it's pretty dependable. It's not very interesting.
Yeah,
I don't think he's out of time.
You can rely on him to hit the drums very hard.
I think this one, it is a good riff, but as usual, they do nothing with it. There's no song here that wouldn't benefit from being cut in half. This could be a really good 2.5 minute thrashy punky song.
Yeah.
But my other notes are: how shit are you? How shit does it get? It's never as shit as it seems. I just wanted it to end by this point. I really did. I was like, this is enough. This is enough.
I quite like the down-pick thrashy riff that we get at 350. That's one of the moments I picked up on this one, because it becomes more of a Metallica song. But yeah, I didn't really pick up on much outside of Kurt gets another lead guitar part on this song. It's not exactly testing him, though, to be honest with you. For me, Sweet Amber's a largely forgettable back half song, unfortunately. It has its moments, but for me, it's kind of dwarfed by the song that follows, which is The Unnamed Feeling, which for the longest time was my favourite song on the album.
Then the unnamed feeling, it comes alive, yeah. Then the unnamed feeling takes me away, yeah, it takes me away.
And I think it's mainly due to the fact that I like the way it's structured. It feels like it moves in the sort of way I'd expect a song to. It's not as weird and staccato and slapdash ideas thrown at a wall and seeing what sticks and trying to piece it all together. It actually feels like it's like the movement of it is like an actual song structure. It does what I want from a song, to be honest with you. All right, yes, it's really bloody long, and too long probably, but it's just
you don't say.
It's just one of those songs where I'm like, this is absolutely fine, like structure wise and just the way they've put it all together. I think it works. I think it moves in a way that feels natural and is totally, serviceable in that regard. There's one thing though, like there's more daft pronunciation in this. It's the get the fuck out of here. That always gets me. And I always remember as well, it's like, James Hetfield shouldn't be swearing. This shouldn't be happening. It's such a weird thing for him to be saying the F word.
He F-bombs a lot in Kill 'Em All.
Does he? I can't remember.
He F-bombs in S&M, where he goes, burn, motherfucker, burn, and all his fuel. So he doesn't seem to do it. So it's a live flourish.
But yeah, I remember because there's a lot of swearing on this record, and it was always like, this isn't my like opinion of this band has not been serviced by what I'd previously heard, and like the hits, the Metallica hits, all the bloody Enter Sandmans and all that malarkey. You don't hear swear words, so for it to you come to Saint Anger and it's like very sweary. I'm just like this isn't what I came in for this band for. And it always sounds a bit like he's a bit unsure whether he should be swearing, especially in this one. Where it's like, the fuck?
I think this one, like the intro, actually, it's a bit new metal. Like, it's a bit
maybe
like
that's why I like
cover
it.
of Mudvayne's Dig.
Maybe that's why I like
It's
it.
It's really nicely layered intro. The
Yeah.
guitar parts all play off each other really nicely, and I agree. Like, I think for me, this is probably like the most produced song on the album.
Yeah.
Doing more of my transposing of time, I think it could almost be slotted into Black Album. In
Yeah, I
terms of
can
like
see
the
that.
song, itself, not how it's recorded, obviously. And it's probably got the best James singing in it. Certainly in the
I agree.
choruses.
Actually, yeah, there's like melody on here. Yeah, totally. He doesn't have to make up for the fact that the song is so massively down-tuned. There's like no discernible melody for him to trace. There's lyrics that I can follow. I think that's another reason why I quite liked it. Is like I can remember the lyrics. I can follow the pattern of the melody. I could sing along to this if it was played live.
Having said that, though, you're talking about the headphones thing. Is any part of the chorus of this song in tune?
the
whole
yeah, I know.
feeling.
All of
I
it is.
just-
It's all in tune. It's all there. And he does some kind of, dare I say,
Some kind of
harmonizing,
tuning.
I'll tell you what the choruses also do, which is good. Well, to an earlier point that I made, the chorus develops in this song, and there's a moment where it kind of breaks free a bit and kind of moves around. It doesn't move around a bit more. I think it drops some of the kind of static guitar playing that's over some of the first choruses. But there's that feeling of release, and dare I say, it's almost majestic. Is what I've written down, literally word for word, relative to the rest of the album.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. I have no qualms with the Unnamed Feeling. I think it is a serviceable, listenable song that I'm glad they used as a single, to be honest with you. I think it was the last one off the record, if I remember correctly. And yeah, I think it's a little bit not remembered very highly, but I think I like it quite a lot.
Look, I'm just going to respectfully disagree. Not a huge fan. Like, I think the weirdest bit is that at the end it just kind of farts out. It just goes.
Oh yeah,
flat sound. It's just really funny.
Yeah.
There you go.
But
Enough's enough.
But do you know what the unnamed feeling is? That's right. It's the final trivia question that I wrote.
Oh,
I
here
do
we go.
know what the
Right.
unnamed feeling is, but hopefully one of your multiple
it-
choice lines up.
Is it A, the feeling you get when you're talking about an important experience but no one else cares, so you give up talking about it? Is it B, the feeling you get before you lose control and panic? Or is it C, the feeling you get when you lose control and wet yourself?
I'm gonna go with B.
I think it's B. It's anxiety, was what I heard.
It
Was
is.
the unnamed feeling.
Yep, that's what James has said. It's the feeling you get before you lose control and panic.
There we go.
The first one is a real thing called exolansis, when you're talking about an important experience, which is how I felt talking about Saint Anger over these years and no one else cared.
And what's the last one?
Oh, I just made that up. That's just not going to the bathroom quick enough.
It's just unfortunate. That was me about 15 minutes ago. Yeah.
Let's talk about Purify.
Tear it down, strip the layers off my turpentine, old paint, old looks.
So this one's more of a load-reload banger for about 5 seconds.
Yeah, it opens with a great riff, doesn't it? Yeah.
And then just, I feel like a lot of these songs actually start off quite well, and then they slide off into this nondescript riff sludge.
Yeah.
And that contributes to the feeling, the unnamed feeling of just feeling like it's the same thing over and over again. and because I've listened to the whole thing about 3 or 4 times, I don't agree with that. I could pick all the individual songs apart of it, in a blind riff test.
Yeah.
But This song's fucking shocking. The
It's
chorus is probably the worst on the album.
I have also written the exact same thing, Alan. Hey,
Yeah. Did you write this is shocking and the worst chorus?
probably the worst chorus on the album is in my notes.
Yeah. Okay.
What
do you think?
I wrote terrible, but I do find myself singing it. There is something hooky about the vocal in it.
Oh my God.
Purify, come on,
It's the thing instantly spoils it for me is when the vocals initially come in, they don't sound like they match the weird staggered riff in that verse. It's such a weird piece of music, and I don't know why they've chosen to sing over that bit in particular. I would have left that alone if you were going to structure this in a different way, but like, yeah, the lyrics and vocals on this are just dire. Like this, it really ruins it.
We were listening to this one earlier when we were making dinner, and I was sitting in the living room typing my final jokes, and Jess is in the kitchen and she just shouts through the hatch, "Oh my God, this is so tedious."
To be fair though, at the 10th song in, that's heroic.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we need to do a Jess request to make up for this one. I've got a lot of apologising to do.
Yeah, totally.
This is the song that I remember least on the album every time.
Yeah.
Every time I listen to it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is on it. It's never been played live. That's according to Metallica.com. Yeah, my notes were like intro, this is kind of a mess and generic. Then verse, this really doesn't work for me. Chorus, terrible, but I like the singing. And then I've written great riff at 2 minutes 50.
Yes. No, I didn't have 2 minutes 50. I had that there's a bit at the very end that's quite catchy, and that's what they should have built the song around. So what's your riff? 2 minutes?
2 minutes 50. And then I've written, suddenly there's life in this song. And that's it. And it has it's good. And it's an example of, if this was like, recorded as a one take jam, it clearly wasn't. It's another monstrosity of Pro Tools sectioning. But if this was a jam, that kind of late section is like, oh well, that's the interesting idea. Let's take that out and go and build something either around that or into that or whatever. This song also has a final 30 seconds, which is just completely different from the rest of the song, and then it just stops.
Yeah. And we've given up. There we go. Yeah.
Okay. Are we done? No.
Okay.
No, there's one more track, and it is All Within My Hands.
All within my hands, love to death, smack you round and round, and all within my hands, beware. Love is control, I'll die if I let go. Love is control, I'll die if I let go.
Which has bizarrely come back into Metallica's set list as of recent, hasn't it? Like, it's on S&M too.
It's on S&M too.
It is,
it
yeah.
is.
I haven't actually listened to S&M too yet.
That S&M 2 version is actually quite not good, actually. I quite enjoy it.
It's quite a rework of the verses. It's quite a rewrite, but it's good. It's nice.
Yeah, no, it totally works. I think the original actually is also quite a perfectly serviceable song, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's fine for what it does. They've obviously got that core All Within My Hands like chorus lyric that they keep coming back to, and it sort of binds the whole thing together. The only thing I'd say about this one that really spoils it is the ending.
Kill.
Yes,
Kill.
Fucking awful. Just constant killing, screaming, and you're just like, it doesn't match the rhythm again. It sounds really strained and painful to do, and I just, it's such a shame that it ends on that. I think the whole record.
I actually think there's some interesting ideas in here, and at times there's a John Frusciante shimmery vibe to some of the guitars.
Oh, okay, yeah,
I don't know if that's fair, but that was the closest thing I could think
there's
of.
That kind of swampy, chugging light distortion, and then there's like a kind of phasing guitar that sweeps it. It's great, amazing, like landscape.
But it's but it's kind of crushed under that Saint Anger mush, and the Hetfield bellowing and the clanging drums and the generic. And then you look at your watch and you're like, oh my god, is it 8 minutes long? Fuck me.
Yeah.
How is this 8 minutes long? And then the end is just kill over and over. Everyone else plays at their own pace, drifts out of tune. It's nightmare fuel.
Yeah.
It is.
And I love it.
Nightmare fuel, nightmare fire, nightmare that which I did not desire.
I love the apocalyptic ending, very like understated apocalypse, right? It's not big explosions. I like how it falls apart. This was also this is when I remember this was an album I would listen to fall asleep to quite a lot.
Really?
Wow. And so normally when I would get to like this song in particular, I'd be in that slightly more hazy state where the kind of it's not a strict false ending to the song, but there are definite moments where it kind of comes back from the dead. This is the song that actually I think finally the last track on the album ticks their mission statements in terms of like unrelenting, angry. It has, I think, the only riff which like descends. All the other main riffs of the song tend to start low and build up. This one is kind of that chugging, stepping down the stairs kind of thing. But yeah, it hits its mission. That mission statement, it works. Like the lyrics they've got the structure to it, but it's not as monotonous as some of the other ones. It is not like the standout track off the album, but I think for what they were setting out to do, or at least how it was billed, this is the one that fits it the best. And as you say, the S&M inclusion, I was so excited to listen to it because I hoped that they would just basically play it straight. And actually having an orchestra over the top of it could have added something to the original, maybe, like because it's the rhythms are so flat in many of these songs. And in terms of like the melody, well, there's very little melodies, or if there is, there's one at a time. So I feel like that would be like quite a good playing field to sculpt some symphonic stuff over the top. But I think
the version that they ended up with is quite a lovely song, to be honest with you. Like, it's obviously they've gone for this sort of semi-acoustic kind of thing, and Kurt gets to do a solo, which is kind of fun as well. Like
12-string acoustic guitar solo.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty impressive.
Weirdly, on that performance, James Hetfield ends it with a Borat line.
Really?
Yeah, he says,
I haven't heard
all within
the
my hands. And then he does it in very clearly the Borat voice. He goes, very nice. And I'm just like, oh, James. Oh, James. Well, please don't.
God. Right, guys, we reached the end of Saint Anger. Hooray!
So, final thoughts?
I don't dislike it. Let's put it that way. Like, I think, like I've said, I think it's a moment in time. It's a weird record. It's proper weird, but kind of makes it stand out, right? But on the whole, yes, it is too long. The songs are too similar. The lyrics are so first draft, it's like unreal. But I kind of have a lot of respect for it as a record, because it's just like, here is a moment in time when Metallica were having a real hard go of it, and it captures it really well in a strange way. Yeah, that's the way I feel about it. I don't dislike it at all. I have definitely come around to it more in later years, because I've learned to appreciate what was happening and what they achieved during that time, and it must have been very difficult to make. But I think it's a pretty good encapsulation of where they were at. So I have some respect for it, totally.
Yeah, I agree completely in terms of when you're saying like it's a moment in time. I think if you were, while the documentary is an amazing either primer for going into the album or as like a post-mortem, if you never saw or never knew of the history of it, and you gave someone the selection of the main Metallica studio albums and ask them which one were they having an emotional and mental breakdown during, they would go, "Oh, it was clearly this one," and
Yeah,
I think that's kind of, and that's why I like it. I still, it is probably my favorite Metallica album. But
Jesus fucking Christ.
Alan, you know this. I really enjoy the beauty in flawed things. It happens a lot with like my favorite movies. Typically have flaws in them. Like Cloverfield,
I can get behind
is
this
my favorite
lot,
movie.
to be honest.
One of them anyway.
And what's your favorite Xbox 360 game, Craig?
It's Alone in the Dark, 2008. Dead Rising is also one of my favorites, which is again another kind of very flawed album. It's a very flawed game.
Flawed album.
But yeah, it's just got, it has those, it has creative decisions that I really enjoy. All the flaws are real, all the Pro Tools stuff, the lack of lyrics, the lack of work generally on each song. If this was an album of Dirty Windows, of that kind of level, that's a glimmer of what it could have been. But for the time it was recorded, this is it. And I'm so happy that it exists. And I think, as I said earlier, I think it's the last novel Metallica album. I don't think they're ever going to do anything different. I think Death Magnetic, Hardwired are what I call kind of your greatest hits album, where you can kind of look at each song and go, that's the Kill 'Em All song, that's the Master of Puppets song, that's the Load song. Totally. And even there's a couple, Cyanide, I felt always had a kind of Saint Anger vibe to it. And I don't know if they're ever going to step out of that zone, and they don't need to. They've established themselves, but well, actually, you know what? I take it back. They did Lulu. We haven't really addressed that.
Exactly.
Lulu is the worst Metallica album ever.
I'm actually tempted to listen to it after this. That's further listening for myself. Like, how can
I have listened to it once. It is unique. Let's put it that way.
It makes sense when you know it's about a German play. It's based on or inspired by a German play, but it is, my God, like spoken word is always generally fraught with terror. I've not made it through the songs on that one. That was it's a hard go. Notoriously, David Bowie is one of its like supporters. He thinks he thought it was an actually great record that people didn't sort of get. Just further proof that none of us are David Bowie and can understand his frame of his view.
Made for him only, I guess.
Look, I after having listened to this about 3 or 4 times, start to finish, I hate it less. And look, I think Metallica have more fun when they're playing hard rock with a metal twinge, and that's totally fine. I don't think this is a good hard rock album. I think there's very little creative flair to it. I really think it's mostly unredeemable dog shit. And if it didn't have Metallica on the name, it would never have made it into the shops. As far as a Metallica history piece goes, and a companion album to some kind of monster, I think it is an interesting curio.
Yeah.
And if you're somebody who's into metal and wants to dig a little deeper and think about stuff, it's interesting. But you couldn't recommend it for the casual listener, because when you get down to
it's for
it is
Metallica
crap,
fans.
and
absolutely,
and it's a bit some kind of monster explains Saint Anger, but it doesn't excuse it. and just because there's 2 years of recording hell, doesn't mean that they should really have ever released it. So I still think it's pretty crap, and I think as far as Metallica albums goes, it's easily the worst. Although I haven't listened to Lulu yet, but easily the worst of their studio albums, and I think it lives up to the terrible reputation. So
here we go.
Yeah, I will not be returning to it in a rush, and actually I feel like I feel a bit traumatized after listening to it. But it's been a real treat to listen to the Metallica back catalogue over the past couple of weeks. Their first 3 albums are hard to beat, and it reinforced to me that they genuinely were good back in the day, even if they're not so good now. And I've got a lot of time for Hardwired. I think there's a lot of fun stuff in that. But as you say, Craig, it's really they're doing pretty much what Testament has been doing for years and years. And Megadeth and Anthrax, which is bashing the same album again and again.
It's good, man. There's good songs on it, but it's safe. It's safe.
Yeah. But I guess lack of dangerous music comes at a cost. So So I think you guys had the same favorite song, and I think that song was "Dirty Window."
You would be correct. Correct.
So what do you think my favorite song is?
I think yours was "Invisible Kid."
What's the shortest song?
I feel kind of ashamed, but it was "Invisible Kid." I thought that was I just enjoyed that. I just enjoyed that riff. I enjoyed the bit, and it reminded me of another band. I thought, oh, Deftones, I could listen to that. Should do Deftones. Yeah, but by and large, there's not a lot of hits. I think the actual song "Saint Anger" is a bit of a guilty pleasure. Despite its crappiness, it's not that bad. So what has everybody got for further recommendations then, apart from Lulu?
Well, I wouldn't recommend Lulu or further recommendations either. I went a little bit different with my further listening and decided that because this album is so odd and that there's like very little that's similar to it, I have decided my two further listenings are two better ways to listen to Saint Anger. The first being the rehearsal DVD that comes with the original pressing of the album.
That's good.
I think
That's
those rehearsals sound great. They are such a better way to listen to it that it's annoying that it wasn't offered as a bonus CD instead of a bonus DVD. I would have much preferred to have that and then rip that and stick that on the iPod instead of the actual album version. And the other we mentioned briefly is #Saint Anger 2015 by Daryl Gardner, Chris Dando and Dave Cox. It is a complete re-recording of Saint Anger by those three gentlemen, and production wise it's a lot cleaner and a lot sharper, and it makes the actual musicianship stand a lot better on its own, to be honest with you. I think everything's a lot clearer, and it's a really nice rendition of the album. It certainly makes the songs I like sound better. Certain ones are a little bit unsavable, like All Within My Hands and Purify. But if you're gonna listen to this album, those are two better ways to listen to this record.
Yeah, you're spot on. Like the live DVD is such a great shout. That is,
yeah, totally.
If you're able to show people something, but I think also it helps. You see them playing it, and you do see that they're enjoying themselves.
Totally.
And that
and they click with Robert,
listening to the studio version.
Exactly, they click with Robert so quickly. You know, like he's such a good addition to that band. They clearly unite under his influence, he's such a strange individual as well. I love that they chose Robert as the bassist. He's such a striking presence, and he's got a really interesting play style that's his own. And again, they pick up on the fact that he plays with his fingers, and it reminds them of Cliff, and it's just such a nice little moment. It's like Robert is the chosen guy, and they clearly really get on with him really well, and he's such an interesting person. I think he's a really good fit for the band. And yeah, that's the first time he really got to play it live, and you can tell they all really vibe with each other really well, and I'm glad that he's still there. I think he's a very good influence on the band in general.
Thank you. So the first of my two picks is the counterpoint to 2003 Saint Anger. It's another album from 2003, also from an iconic heavy metal band. It's Iron Maiden's Dance of Death, which, if you want a more opposite experience to the recording of Metallica's Saint Anger, you can go and find some making-offs of Dance of Death, and it's such a lovely experience, guys. They all get on, they're all talking to each other, they're respecting each other's opinions. There's three guitarists, but they're not fighting for space. And there's a producer who just gets it done. He's so relaxed. And the songs have arrangements and structures and lyrics and stories and imagery. I just find it really interesting that, because I don't know if this actually exists in the heavy metal world, but I remember being presented with you were kind of more in an Iron Maiden camp than a Metallica camp. I don't know if that's a division that's made much.
I don't know if that's really more of a division. That's you pick who your favourite of the four is, the thrash four.
Right.
Yeah.
Iron Maiden's not Iron Maiden's not Yeah, I think it's.
Then they sort of sit outside of that, don't they? So yeah.
Yeah. They're not the fresh band. So my second metal gig ever was Iron Maiden in Dublin, 2003 for the Dance of Death tour. And I think I may have got rid of my Dance of Death tour T-shirt because it was getting like a bit holy. But it was the oldest T-shirt in my collection. I think it is. I think Dance of Death is a great album.
It's got great track. Dance of Death in particular, I love. Passchendaele.
Passchendaele's really good. Rainmaker's really good. It's even good. It's got the first track written by Nico McBrain, which is New Frontier on it.
And when you watch the making of, like when you watch, it's the only song the drummer's written, and they talk. Steve Harris, the bass player, is saying like, oh, and then Mick's, teaching me how to play the bass, and I'm like, oh, this is something like how I play, and he's like, oh, I've been watching you for 20 years, and I'm like, oh, you Muppet, and I'm like, oh, they're so nice, they just get on with each other, whereas Lars and Kirk are screaming, or Lars and James are screaming fuck into each other's face. Meanwhile,
the only thing about Dance of Death is it's very 2003, and that the cover is all like this really shitty CG imagery. So like it's all been done in Poser. So that's the only thing I don't like about it.
The controversy about that is the artist is that is exactly what it is, a pre-render of the final version, but the band liked the pre-render better than the final version. The artist disagreed to the point that they are not credited in the liner notes. Wow. But yeah, I like it again. But it doesn't fit the vibe of the album. But I like it for its weirdness. But again, I like kind of weird things. I have also just written an open question of if there was ever world peace and there was no more war, what would Iron Maiden sing about?
They would sing about historic wars.
I guess so.
It's a really good album. It's a weird one in the Maiden canon, but it's really, and the track Dance of Death is very good. It gets a bit Stonehenge, it's Spinal Tap in the middle.
It's got its kind of Baroque elements to it, for sure. But again, it's the concept of the album. It kind of works.
But it's part of it's their first. I think it's their first album where they really go full prog. They become increasingly prog rocky with their later albums, especially Final Frontier and the Book of Souls. They're very like long ass 20-minute track proggy albums. So okay, what's your second pick?
My second one is more in the line of what because I don't think Saint Anger is a particularly heavy album. Like System of a Down instantly trounces like anything on Saint Anger in terms of heaviness.
Yeah.
So I wanted to pick, but I don't listen to a lot of heavy metal music, and I didn't want to pick something else from the early 2000s. So in an attempt to be at least semi-current, I've went to what was the most recent heavy, unrelenting, innovative, pure metal album, which is the soundtrack to 2016's Doom.
I can see why you've chosen that, actually.
Which, like, my God, if you want unrelenting, beat you over the head metal, like that is the one to go to. Particularly if you're in any way interested in song music production. Mick Gordon, the composer, has got a GDC talk where he shows you how he came up with the sound, which was like running sine waves through just these insane arrays of effects units, which is kind of like an idea of channeling energy that comes from the game. And he comes up with this incredibly innovative sound because he had the mission brief of no guitars for Doom. And then he slowly just adds more guitars. And then he adds 7-string guitars. And then he adds an 8-string and then a 9-string guitar. And it's definitely an album that I will throw on. I did it a lot when I was doing a lot of renovation around the house and having to tear things down.
Rip and
tear, man. But yeah, the 2016 Doom is an absolute banger.
Yeah,
it's a very good soundtrack. I think what's it, BFG Division?
What a song!
That's a sledgehammer of a track. I think I sent my brother's a gif of a cat headbanging that. All right. Well, I have been really boring and just picked 2 albums. I stuck to the brief.
You did.
So I have 2 picks. First one is another thrash album, and it is Slayer's Rain and Blood. Because after listening to this, I think we need a bit of a I was trying to think what's the diametric opposite of this. It
Yeah,
is
yeah.
even heavier and faster than Metallica's earlier stuff. Incredible album. I think it's one of the most powerful things ever committed to record.
Yep.
And it's about 30 minutes long.
Yeah, not even that. Yeah,
So it really is the antithesis of Saint Anger, and it's a lot of fun.
yeah, great album.
So the second one is I was trying to think about the Metallica fun hard rock sound.
Yeah,
And we're thinking, what band has done that well, infused metal and hard rock? So my second pick is it's an album by Alter Bridge. It's called Fortress. So this is what I think Metallica have been trying to do since Load, and it is just one great riff after another, after another, after another, and the title track in particular is it's a masterpiece. I could just listen to that all day, and you will not believe that it is pretty much everybody from Creed except the singer.
yeah.
Oh, it's
I always,
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
I
So
always
Alter
forget.
Bridge is it's Mark Tremonti, whoever the other two guys from Creed are called, aren't Scott Stapp, and it's Miles Kennedy on the vocals. But Tremonti does a lot of solo stuff as well.
Yeah,
He's got a
I've
couple
been-
of really good
I've
solo
been
albums
shown
like
some
Cauterize
Tremonti,
and
yeah.
Dust, and
Yeah.
but he is probably one of the best like modern metal guitars, and Tremonti's his solo stuff's actually quite thrashy, but
Yeah.
Fortress is more. I'd say it's more just kind of heavy metal / like stadium rock.
Yeah,
But to me that's taken what Metallica have been trying to do, but keeping it consistently interesting and melodic and good. So it's a really favorite album of mine. I mean they've got a lot of good stuff. Blackbird's probably their most critically acclaimed album. It won like Guitar World's best solo of all time.
Oh, right, okay.
But I think Fortress is a good entry point.
oh, very good.
So this is the Saint Anger of podcast because it's about twice as long as it probably needed to be.
Yeah. I look
Yeah.
forward to this being either your most or least downloaded episode.
I couldn't even tell you the stats. Okay, so all right, so some kind of monster. So what I thought, so the actual serious comment is that Craig and I, for those of you who don't know, have been doing. We've been writing a blog called Split Screen for over a decade now, and we also did a magazine called 5 out of 10 for 5 years, and we're always trying to outdo each other and make each other laugh, and that's kind of the way our creative process works, is riffing off each other. And we usually come to the table with ideas, and St. Anger's totally the opposite of that. They come in with no ideas, and it really shows. And I thought it was interesting to contrast it with our creative process, because this is just guys shrugging their shoulders without much inspiration. It's a bit of an Aussie Aussie, but right mate attitude to it, you know. and I just I thought, as without sounding too pretentious, as a creative professional, I found that weird. And if the three of us were coming into the studio to write our album, I would have a massive can of here's all the good riffs I have. What do you think of this? And I think that's part of the reason why the album sucks, is because they don't do that. Does that ring true?
I think so, absolutely. Yeah, it is such a strange. I've never understood the creative process of hiring a studio space or a space with nothing in advance. Like, surely you would have jammed or written some riffs or something in advance of any session, because like writing in the studio must be just an enormous waste of money, if anything, right? Like, I appreciate Metallica are in a bit of a nicer position than most in that they have the money to do that sort of thing, but like, I just
Well, the therapist is $40,000 a month, so he gets about $1 million over the course of recording some kind of monster.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, I think I think in terms of Metallica, it's definitely not. It doesn't suit them. And you know, we mentioned how they collect their riffs, and they really do kind of build the songs around the guitar riffs and arrange sections, and then go in and do vocals, and then and then at the same time, I guess, bass and kind of lead guitar solos happen. Interestingly, when you look at the Hardwired album, the reason why most of the making ofs is just got James and Lars, and this is what he said. Is Kirk says he isn't there because he lost his phone, which had all of his ideas on it. Now, why he couldn't still be there and contribute, I don't quite know. Because I know just from my own kind of songwriting that generally the really good stuff sticks with you, and you don't necessarily need to write it down. But you know, I kind of do get So for Metallica, no, the studio thing does not work. Other bands, kind of, I get it. I like recording my own nonsense. Adios Famous at adiosfamous.bandcamp.com. The last thing I did, the last little EP I did was because I had a couple months before my baby was going to be born, and there was maybe 2 of those songs I had like ideas for, but there is something really nice about discovering something in the moment and recording it and building it, and it, for me, it makes the music be off the moment. But you can always capture that in terms of how you build it. But
I think as well, like in your instance there, like you at least have the freedom of, it's your home studio. It's not costing you any money to do that sort of things. I don't think everybody has that freedom, unfortunately. I'm very similar
absolutely.
when I write Cranston stuff. I am sitting in front of a PC. Yeah. Exactly. I'm sitting in front of a PC, just rearranging things there and then, and whatever sticks, and I'll make a note, record it, or whatever. I don't come into it with ideas, but like I would, in a normal instance, I would have said that was a demoing process that I was doing there instead of it being directly a result of the finished product. Totally I agree completely. Like, it's definitely how I make my music, but again, I'm not going to a studio after to go and produce it correctly with the budget and production.
This is where they say, about writers waiting for inspiration, and they sort of say inspiration's for amateurs, right? And pros just get in there and write, and I suppose musicians just get in there and riff and come up with ideas and play with ideas and bank them. Craig and I have previously talked about the guy from Weezer. He keeps all song ideas in a spreadsheet.
I was going to mention that River Cuomo's, he catalogues his lyrics by syllable count where the emphasis sits, and he does a similar thing, I think, for just chord progressions, and then it's just a case of scrolling through and matching things up. And while again they've had some decent songs in later years, it seems like such a joyless process.
Yeah,
when we say we're on the turning point of AI about to generate art, like, well, you clearly are when we're doing the fucking job that they're going to do anyway by making the spreadsheets.
Yeah.
Weezer will be the first to be replaced by the robotic overlords. Beverly Hills, that's where I want to be. All right, on to my jokey notes. Well, seeing I'm vegan, it would be remiss of me to say James Hetfield skips his kid's first birthday to go kill a bear in Russia, which is perfectly normal, down-to-earth stuff that normal people do. Right, my biggest problem with Some Kind of Monster, if they're doing 4-hour work days, why don't they eat lunch before they start work? Why are there so many scenes of them eating lunch and complaining about not having enough time? That is basic project management. That is just why do they spend so much time in that movie eating goddamn sandwiches when they're good at recording music?
If ever someone needed a packed lunch on the drive to the studio, it's
yeah. Also, so really, they should have just, the lesson for all the musicians is just eat a hearty breakfast and then get the studio and get recording. There's also a bit that on day 550, the manager is listening and he says, "Jesus Christ, these guys aren't letting up." And also, day 620, when you're watching the therapist age in front of our eyes, and he says, "I like to stretch the frontiers of what people accept."
Oh, God. Oh, that's so scary.
So we got to the end of Some Kind of Monster, and Jess said to me, it was very long. It could have done with more editing. I just said, yeah, wait till you hear the album.
Can you just clip that out as a separate 4-second version of this podcast?
Well, that was some kind of podcast.
Yeah, that was indeed.
So, Craig, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. It's been an absolute blast, and we'll have you back on in the next episode for Lulu.
Fantastic. I'll go investigate what that was then. It's been great. Thank you for having me.
Where can we find your music? Because that wasn't a good enough plug.
Oh, my music is at Adios Famous, ADIOSFAMOUS.bandcamp.com. It's just me. It's just me doing stuff.
Good stuff.
If anyone were to ever listen, please let me know what genre it is. I don't know what to tag it as.
You need to improve the SEO. So,
Get discovered. Have my big break. Be picked up by Bob Rock.
he could play the bass like a ukulele for you. So you can find us at castironshow.co.uk. You can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. You won't find us on Spotify because I don't like that they can inject ads into podcasts. That sucks. And you can also find us on Twitter at castironshow, and you can find us on Facebook. And that's us. That's been us.
Yeah, it is indeed.
And we will return again, and we'll trying to be so long next time. Craig's giving the horns. You can't see it. Craig's giving the horns. Are you in your dressing gown?
Yeah.
That's very rock god of you.
I am as well, even though you can't
very
see me. But yeah,
it's more Sleepy Dad than Rock God, but I'll take it.
You've got like 3 or 4 guitars behind you, so you've got the credentials.
There's 4 guitars. There's an electric banjo. But if I talked about that, I would stretch the podcast even more. So.
Well, thanks so much for listening, and don't forget to review us and share us with all your friends. Until then, we've been Cast Iron. Thanks so much for listening.
Take care.
Bye.